All right, this is a similar question from Mary Beth. How do we navigate the relationship with an adult child living at home who is angry with us because of politics, i.e., who we voted for, and feels she needs to move out to pull back from our relationship?
Well, it strikes me that the most important thing in this circumstance, Amy, is the relationship. And there are times when, because of the relationship, and I face this myself in my own home in different ways, because of the importance of the relationship. And let me back up and this isn't just across the believer non-believer divide. This has to do with human interaction, regardless of where the spiritual commitments happen to lie. The New Testament, especially, places a tremendous premium on peace in relationships. There's a verse in Romans chapter 12, which is just filled with practical advice that says, if possible, as far as it's within your power, be at peace with all men. All men, Christians, non-Christians. Now, the way Paul puts it there, it's clear that it's not always going to be possible. And it's not always going to be within your power. Nevertheless, we are still to do what we can do to bring peace. Okay, and especially when there are political differences, as opposed to spiritual differences, there's much more gravity to spiritual differences. And if you change a person's mind when it comes to spiritual things, this has huge ramifications. But on political things, if you change one person's mind, that's one vote. It doesn't have huge ramifications. It's important. We should be doing that, but the weightiness is different. And so when it comes to political kinds of things, cultural kinds of things, it is better to do the greater good, which is to maintain the peace in the relationship and to build the strength in the relationship, which, by the way, can be a productive platform on which to make a difference in the future if you still have that good relationship. It's more important to do that than to press a point that's political that ends up significantly undermining the relationship. So in those circumstances, in both physical, or I should say non-spiritual and spiritual things, I'm going to look really hard at trying to maintain that relationship for the value of the relationship and the additional value. This isn't just utilitarian, but the additional value isn't the only thing. The most important thing is the intrinsic value of the relationship, but that also, if the relationship is good, gives you a platform on which maybe sometime in the future to speak to either of these categories of things, whether it's political or spiritual. So, and especially on political issues, why create division in your family because of that? These relationships are really important. Now, maybe the other person won't countenance you. They're going to say, oh, you voted this way in the last election. I don't want anything to do with you. There's not much you can do. You're not going to change your vote. But what you can purpose to do is not pursue those issues in the midst of a relational circumstance so that you're not driving people away for reasons that don't justify that. And I think political reasons are examples of that.
My suggestion really depends on the person, but I think from what I've seen online and the reason for the anger, I think at root is a belief that the motivations of the other side are evil. So it's not just you have the wrong ideas or your ideas aren't going to work as well as mine. It's more of you are motivated by evil and you want to do evil.
Your haters, for example, there's an example of that.
So I suspect that's part of the reason why the child is so angry, because they are assuming you have motives that you probably don't have. So depending on the person and if you think this would do any good, one thing you might want to do is just sit the child down and just say, look, I don't expect you to agree with me, but it's very important to me that you understand me. And I want to explain these issues that you are so opposed to that I voted for. I want to explain why I'm voting for them so that you understand why that it's not coming from a place of hatred and evil, but I actually have good reasons. I've had conversations with people on Facebook over the years where they've been very surprised. They've never heard any reasons why someone would want limited government, for example. They've never heard it before. And I've had someone say, why didn't anyone tell me this before? So don't assume that they actually know why you voted a certain way, because they're hearing other people attribute motives to you that you don't have. So if you think they would be willing to just say, look, there's no pressure to agree with me, I'm not going to try to convince you, but I do want you to understand the reasons why. And maybe I'm wrong, but at least you'll know that I'm not this evil person you can't live in a house with.
Right.
So I think that's what I would try next.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a good point. Just keep in mind that this presumes a certain level of goodwill on the side of the other person, and they may perceive this. Oh, I just want you to understand my view. They may perceive that as, well, that's defensiveness, and now you're trying to persuade me, and I don't want any of that. So you have to be alert, and I think you mentioned this earlier on, Amy. You have to be alert to their actual willingness to hear what you have to say, to hear you out. And if you think that goodwill is there, it's great for the reasons that you mentioned. Some things are so, especially very soon after an election, the nerves are so raw that any attempt to kind of clarify one's view is going to be viewed as proselytizing, I think. And so you might want to wait a few months when things cool off a little bit to talk about it. If you're able to talk about it, this is great what you said, because a lot of people just don't understand. They don't see it because they are in an echo chamber, they're in a bubble, and they only hear their own side and the view, and they don't hear the other rationale.